What's up, everyone? This is James Jesso from Adventures Through the Mind, also the author of Decomposing the Shadow and the True Light of Darkness. I am currently in Budapest, Hungary, and that's where I'm shooting this video from. The lighting is great. I wish I could get it this nice in my office at home. But I wanted to talk to you guys about ego-death, dying, and some of the research that's going on, or that has been going on, that shows that psilocybin experiences can contribute to the resolution of depression and anxiety related to end-stage cancer, or basically related to dying. And I don't have any of my gear really except for this video camera, so you'll have to pardon me that there won't be really any cuts, or I might find a videographer for it. And that there's traffic and stuff, but I digress because I just want to make this quick. In my other video, I suggested that having an ego death or ego dissolution does not mean, or for most people, and I'd say, like, dare I say, for almost all people who experience an ego death, that having an ego death does not necessarily correlate to being okay with dying, or no longer being afraid of death, or no longer being afraid of dying. And I suggest, well, I just blatantly said that I felt that a lot of people who claim after an ego death experience on psychedelics that they are no longer afraid of dying are actually employing a very heavy psychological defense mechanism to protect themselves from how actually afraid they really are. But then how does that correlate with the research around psilocybin? Specifically, I'll quote this study here. Psilocybin produces substantial and sustained decreases in depression and anxiety in patients with life-threatening cancer, which was done by Roland Griffiths and in his lab there. The research suggests, and I'll go down a little bit deeper here, that high-dose psilocybin produced large decreases in clinician and self-rated measures of depression, mood, and anxiety, along with increases of quality of life, life meaning, and optimism, and decreases in death anxiety. At 6 months follow-up, these changes were sustained, with about 80% of participants continuing to show clinically significant decreases in depressed mood and anxiety. Participants attributed improvements in attitudes about life, self, mood, relationships, and spirituality to the high-dose experience, with greater than 80% endorsing moderately or greater increased well-being, life satisfaction. So basically, they did research on people who are chronically depressed, and also essentially at the end of their lives in their journey with cancer. And understandably, as I discussed in the other video, we as a culture in the Western world don't really have a lot of meaning structure around dying, like generative meaning structure around dying. And of course, check out that other video if you want to see my thoughts on this in more deeply. But ultimately, it's a battle where if you die, you lose. The war against cancer, and understandably so. This is a vicious disease that takes a lot of lives, and I can see why ends a lot of lives. Kills a lot of people, basically. This disease kills a lot of people. I want to be mindful of how I speak about cancer, because I don't want to come off as insensitive or unacknowledging of how profound cancer can impact a person's life and the entire relational ecosystem around that person. But yeah, we have this very adversarial language around cancer and around dying, and death. It's like, if you live long enough, life kills you, sort of thing. That even some, as one commenter on YouTube suggested, that the transhumanism movement often sort of refers to death as some sort of like a murder, or some sort of slight in some way, that we die. Excuse me again, I don't have any capacity to do any edits here. And so, of course, if you're facing with the end of your life, of your dying time, struck by this cancer, and the only language that you have is that cancer is killing you, and you have to fight to stay alive against the cancer, and that, death is some sort of defeat. I mean, like, finish the statement, like, if you fight your dying, when you die, inevitably, as we all will, you're a loser. I mean, what kind of language is that? And everyone around being so desperately concerned about, the dying person dying and not being able to get on. And there's a lot of heavy emotions and a lot of despair there. And I can definitely appreciate that, as I've watched cancer take the lives of people in my family as well. But then we just wonder about, let's just wonder for a second. Doesn't it not make sense that somebody at the end of their life with cancer in our culture would be absolutely wrought with anxiety and fear? I mean, it makes perfect sense. And so here comes this study with psilocybin that says that these people who are dying from cancer are given psilocybin, and on the other end of that, they come out with a greater sense of meaning, a greater sense of, appreciating their life. And then the reports start flying. Oh, and that observation of increased quality of outcome, or positive outcome, is directly associated with the rating of on their rating scales, how close it was to a mystical experience, which includes ego dissolution, or in the colloquial, Jesus, I can never pronounce that word. The colloquialism around that is ego death in the psychedelic culture. So the interpretation of that has been many times, a psychedelic trip can help you defeat your fear of death, and that psilocybin takes you to a journey to the other side of dying. These types of commentary, and so that's something I want to address, because I made the comment that having an ego dissolution or an ego death does not necessarily translate into no longer being afraid of dying. So then, how do I account for this clinical evidence that suggests that very much so that type of experience translates in dying people to no longer, like, maybe not being afraid of dying, but no longer having a sense of meaning and value and purpose, and an increase in the positive outcome, the quality of life. That's a tricky word, but people coming out the other side of that no longer suffering from their depression and anxiety about the fact that they're going to die, and they're going to die from cancer, and they're going to die from cancer relatively soon. So how do I account for that? Well, I account for it very easily, which is that these people who are dying from cancer and having a psilocybin trip are not having a trip wherein they have an ego dissolution and a mystical experience, and as a consequence of the experience of dying while on psychedelics contributes to them no longer being afraid of death. These are dying people. The most salient, trouble for them, the thing that they are most troubled by in this moment, is that they are dying. And that it's sort of, to some degree or another, we'll just say it's like the crux of their depression, or of their anxiety, is that they don't have a stance wherein they can wrestle with the reality of their dying in a way that leads to generative impact on themselves and on the family around them. And then they have a psychedelic trip that is all about their dying. That is all about the very real, they're dying right now, this is their dying time. And then they come out the other end of that having resolved something. Of course, they're inside a very supportive structure therapeutically and clinically, so it's not just the drugs themselves, as I've made very clear many times. This is not just somebody having an ego death on psychedelics and coming out unafraid of dying. These are dying people facing their very real, right now they're dying while on a psychedelic trip. And the same mechanism that's at play in the clinical research that suggests, or that shows, that psilocybin, high-dose psilocybin in the correct context can help to alleviate the symptoms of depression, possibly even cure depression. This is the same mechanisms that are at play. It's not fundamentally that this person, thought they were dying on psychedelics, let themselves die on psychedelics, and as a consequence of that, now have this wondrous capacity to no longer be afraid of death. No, they had a psychedelic trip that was focused on the impact of their very real dying right now, and that lays a greater sense of meaning and capacity to I don't know. I haven't been dying and taken psychedelics, but seemingly a greater capacity to have a less detrimental experience. The language around this is so strange, but I hope that you understand what I mean. Let me just take a quick look at my my notes here. I think that's about it. I just wanted to follow up on that comment that I made at the beginning of the episode from a couple weeks ago, and wanted to take the opportunity to get this great lighting and to share that with you. So it's not as refined as my other videos. I hope that you still enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up, share it, leave a comment. But this is interesting. Here's an idea. Leave a comment below if I want to hear what you think about this. I want to hear what you think about my ideas here, because I'm just wondering out loud and I'm exploring these ideas out loud, and I want to get some feedback and I want to get some thoughts on it and to grow and expand to increase the quality of what I can offer to you guys. So thank you very much for taking the time to do so. As an end bit, why don't I show you where I'm at in Budapest. This is an Airbnb that my friend got for us as a thank you for me hooking him up to go to Budapest, or sorry, Ozora. Here it is. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.